Today we're making a maple walnut bundt cake, topped with homemade maple frosting and homemade candied maple walnuts. This dessert is super easy to make and tastes delicious. Let's get started. To a big bowl, we're going to start off with 3/4 cup of softened butter and 1/2 cup of brown sugar. We're going to mix this up real quick until it looks nice and creamy. Add in 2 eggs. Give it a quick mix. Next goes in a ton of wet ingredients. We'll need 1/2 cup of real maple syrup. I will have an ingredients list towards the end, so no need to write anything down. 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract. Yes, that's 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract. And we'll need 3/4 cup of milk. We're gonna give this a quick mix. Now try not to freak out if your mixture looks like baby bird food. This is totally normal, I think. It'll fix itself once we add in our dry ingredients. Speaking of dry ingredients, we need 2 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. See, nice and pretty. Give it a good scrape with the old spatula. Just a quick check to make sure all of the flour has been completely incorporated. This looks pretty good. Set that off to the side. We need to chop up 1 cup of walnuts. I'm using this handy dandy nut chopper. If you don't have one of these, chopping by hand is fine too. I like it because it has 2 settings, one for finely chopped and coarsely chopped. For this recipe, I'm going with coarsely chopped. This looks about right. Add your nuts to your batter and fold them in. This looks pretty good. Grab your bundt pan. There is still a little bit of butter on the butter wrapper, so I'm going to use that to butter the inside of my pan. Add in a bit of flour. We're going to shake this all over the pan so that none of the cake sticks to the pan, hopefully. This looks about right. Add your batter to the inside of your bundt cake pan. The batter will be relatively thick. Just follow it up with a spatula to even everything out. Alright, that's about as good as she's gonna get. Into the oven at 350 degrees for 40 minutes. Okay, this might not look like it's completely done, however, I assure you that it is. You can see the edges are a nice golden brown. We'll stick it with a toothpick just to be sure, and yes, it comes out clean. Ta-da! We're gonna leave this alone in the pan to cool for 15 minutes.
A few minutes later.
To help release your delicious cake from the bundt pan, simply give the sides a good whack all the way around. Even though we waited 15 minutes for our cake to not be so fragile straight out of the oven, the cake is still fairly warm and will need to cool down completely before we frost it. So that means we need to grab our cooling rack and a sheet of parchment paper. Grab your bundt pan, flip your parchment lined cooling rack over the top, have a quick prayer, and flip everything over. And hopefully your cake will pop right out just like this. Now that's a pretty cake. While our cake is cooling, we're gonna make our candied maple walnuts. We're gonna start off with 2 cups of whole walnuts. You don't have to chop them up if you don't want to. I'm giving mine a rough chop, mostly because I prefer smaller clusters of candied walnuts on top of my bundt cake rather than larger ones. Personal preference. To a saucepan or a regular pot on the stove like I'm doing here. We're gonna melt 1 tablespoon of butter. We're not waiting for anything special to happen, so might as well toss in the rest of the ingredients. In goes 1/2 cup of maple syrup, 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, and our 2 cups of chopped walnuts. And later a pinch of salt. I say later because I almost forgot to add it in. Silly me. I have this on medium-high heat and I am stirring it constantly. We're gonna let this cook for 3 minutes. Okay, it's been 3 minutes and this is what our walnuts look like. We're gonna dump out our walnuts onto a sheet of parchment paper to completely cool. I went ahead and spread out our nuts. I wasn't sure if they were gonna stick together in one big mass if I let them cool in a heap. Better safe than sorry. All that's left is the maple frosting. Yum. To a bowl, we need 1 1/2 cups of powdered sugar, 1/4 cup of maple syrup, and 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Give that a quick mix. After giving that a quick mix, I decided it was pretty thick, so I added in a splash more of maple syrup. Even after mixing that in, yes, it helps, but it wasn't enough. The frosting was still pretty thick, almost there, but not quite. If you're in the same boat as me and want it a little bit thinner, you can add in either milk or water. I didn't want any dairy in my frosting, so I added in a little bit of water instead. I'm holding a tablespoon measurer, but only using just a little bit. When it comes to thinning out powdered sugar, a little liquid goes a long way. I did give it a quick spin with my mixer and added in just a couple more drops. And there it is. This is the kind of consistency I'm looking for. To frost the bundt cake, I went with a piping bag and a Wilton 1A size piping tip. But if you don't have any of that, a simple gallon Ziploc bag will do the trick. Pipe a nice thick line of frosting all the way around the top once, and then go once more right on top of that. Grab a small spatula and gently go around the top of the frosting, flat side down with even pressure, making small circles with your spatula. This does one of two things. It helps spread out the frosting and helps create those frosting drips we're looking for. Grab your cooled walnuts and place them on top all over your bundt cake. Ta-da! Look at that beauty. Yum! This was very fun to make, chock full of walnuts everywhere. If you are interested, I have an ingredients list right here for you. Would you care for a slice? Let me know in the comments what you think. Until next time, thanks for watching, and if you like this video, I hope you give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out, and I'll see you all later this week.